Hey guys, it's Nicholas, aka N1s on Headfi. I'm back after a hiatus and I've got some DAPs here. I'm going to talk about some firmware updates that have improved my experience with each of these. Starting over here on the left, the Shanling M1, the Cayin N3, the Aune M1s, and the Cayin i5. And I'm going to go over those brief improvements, and then I'm going to focus on the Cayin N3 because there were some questions about the user interface I think I can answer in the video. Alright, so Shanling M1 just got a firmware update. It's been through a few. The second to last firmware update was rough on the Bluetooth connectivity. This last firmware update has been a little bit better, and one cool improvement is that, like the Cayin N3, you can now use the hardware transport control buttons on the Shanling M1 when you're connected to your smartphone. So say, like me, you got an Android phone and you are playing Tom Sawyer by Rush on your smartphone, transmitting it via Bluetooth over to your Shanling M1. So your phone's in your bag, you're just rocking the little M1 here in your hand, and you want to skip forward and you want to listen to Red Barchetta. All you have to do is hit the fast forward button on your M1 and it will tell your phone to skip forward to Red Barchetta. Pretty cool. The N3 was already doing it. I don't know if it was already planned for the M1 or not, but maybe they heard, hey, the N3 has got this, we better do it too, and they enabled it really fast, or really quickly after the N3 was released. So, they're playing a little catch up, but good feature. I like it. So you can do fast forward, pause, and rewind now with the hardware control buttons on your M1 to control your smartphone over the Bluetooth connection. Pretty cool. And the N3, you can do the same thing. I didn't come in here for any kind of firmware update for this guy right now. I just wanted to show you the hardware a little bit later. But in relationship to a few of these, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the sound on them later too. There's a reason I had these out too. These three are in the same kind of price bracket, the M1, the N3, and the M1s. So, excuse me, I thought if I told you a little bit about how I think they sound, that might help you out with a purchase decision. And seeing them next to each other probably helps too. You can see some differences here and how big they are. There are buttons along the sides on the M1s. It has that control wheel up here in the upper right that you have to use for scrolling through songs and for volume, and then you click it in when you want to select things. The N3 has the capacitive buttons here on the front, on the top and bottom of either of these white lines, and they rewind, fast forward, show lists, and go back through menus. And you got the confirm button there in the middle, also play pause. And then along the sides you've got the volume, power, and you have the fast forward and play pause and rewind. And then the M1s, this is like the simple guy here. You've got the D-pad, enter button, home, back out through your menus. You got some power and volume buttons. And they've been working really hard on the M1s. They had a problem with a split-second cutoff at the beginning of the songs. And there was a reason I talked about Tom Sawyer when I was talking about the M1 over here. The song Tom Sawyer has a very prominent drum hit at the very beginning of the song, and for the longest time the M1s was unable to play that. It had a split-second cutoff at the beginning of the songs, and all I heard were the synthesizers at the beginning of Tom Sawyer. That, I am happy to say, is no longer the case. Aune finally remedied that with their last their last firmware update. The M1s now plays the drum hit right at the beginning, so you get that nice impactful drum hit and then the synth happening kind of simultaneously and carrying on after the drum hit is finished. So you get the nice impactful beginning to Tom Sawyer by Rush. And whatever other songs you have that have something impactful at the beginning, you will now hear them. You're not going to miss them anymore. So thank you, Aune, for working so hard on that. I've been going back and forth with the with their rep on Headfi. Her name is Shelly. She's cool, and she has been really patient with me as I've tested firmware update after firmware update, where she said, "Is it better? Is it right yet?" And I keep telling her, "No, sorry, still not right," until this last one, and she was pretty happy to hear, yes, it's Nicholas approved now. And the last DAP, the Cayin N3. It's been a while. I think maybe I mentioned it in another video, but I was really happy that with their firmware updates, similar to the N3, honestly, when I got in the engineering sample of the N3, the sound was much fuller on the N3, and it has gotten more neutral with the kind of gold master release or the production release firmware, and with the i5 in earlier versions of the firmware, I also felt this player was kind of too full, too warm, and with recent firmware updates, this guy has gotten much more neutral sounding, and I really like it. The sense of space is much improved. The separation of sounds is much improved. And this i5 has gone from a player where I really didn't listen to it very much to a player where I am eager to listen to it now. So that is a bit about each of the players. And I know on Headfi recently, Alex, aka Twister6, had mentioned that the N3 and the i5 sound pretty much the same, except for the sound stage. And I agree with him to a certain extent. I can hear differences though. I was just listening to it right before the video, and I can hear differences. It's not, I wouldn't say that the N3 is on par with the i5. The i5, it has better separation of sounds, and it has better clarity. The upper mids are a little more prominent on the i5 to my ears anyway, which is a complete turnaround from what I feel like the i5 was with earlier firmware, where it was very full and warm. Now the upper mids, the treble are coming through much better, giving it a sense of air and sound separation and sound stage that it didn't have before. And the transient response is also faster on the i5 to my ears. The N3 is a little slower. When the drums are playing, they sound a little more plodding. You know, the like snares or toms, they're a little more plodding with the N3 than they are with the i5. They sound faster on the i5, so the i5 keeps the music flowing along a little bit better to me, or to my ears, than the N3. When we focus on these three on the left, which are kind of similar price bracket, the M1, it's nice, it's small, it's very versatile. The N3 has a lot of the versatility that the M1 does, but the M1 does not have the sound separation, the sound stage, or the clarity of the N3. The M1 sounds pretty full, has more of a mid-bass focus to the bass, it has warm mids, and it sounds more closed in. It sounds good, it sounds better than my smartphone by quite a bit, but if I had to choose between the M1 and the N3, you know, if I were going for the smallest DAP with acceptable sound, I would go with the M1 for sure. If I didn't care so much about the size, because you know these two are, this one, the N3 is about twice as big as the M1. If I didn't care about the size, I would just go for the N3 because it sounds better, and it has the same basic feature set as the M1. Now, when I look at these two, the N3 and the Aune M1s, again, they sound quite a bit different. The M1s in the last firmware I mentioned the split-second cutoff has been solved. That's fantastic. Another thing that I think happened, and Peter123 confirmed this too, that to my ears the M1s single-ended used to sound a bit dull. With this last firmware update, it sounds quite a bit better. It used to sound a little more closed in, not full and warm like the M1 over here, but it did sound more closed in. There wasn't as much clarity up top. The detail wasn't quite there. The balance sound on this thing is fantastic. Very airy, great detail retrieval. The single-ended sounds more along the lines of the balance. Now before, I felt like this was just, it's okay single-ended. If I wanted to listen to the M1s, I was definitely using a balance cable. Now I feel like I can listen to it single-ended and be satisfied. And if I just want that extra little bit of separation or detail retrieval, I'll go balance. But otherwise, the M1s has quite a sonic improvement in the last firmware update, to me anyway. And it's a lot more of a neutral, maybe even leaning towards the reference area, reference style sound than the N3, which is still, kind of a reference style, or neutral. I'll say neutral, but a little bit on the warm side of neutral. So if I were going for these two, if I liked a little bit warmer sound, I would go a little fuller, warmer. I would go for the N3. If I liked that kind of more reference, analytical, airier type sound, I would go for the M1s. If I needed balance, I would definitely go for the M1s. Just know, too, that the M1s is, you can tell it's quite a bit bigger than the N3. It's quite a bit heavier than the N3. This guy is aluminum. This guy is mostly plastic. It still feels okay in your hand, even though it's plastic, but there are some differences here. Build quality on the M1s, it's aluminum, but I gotta say the buttons on here, kind of meh. Not the greatest. The N3, they're a little bit better, but they're still plastic. Moving over, this is just the i5 is in a different price bracket, and you can tell this thing feels fantastic. Metal buttons, metal case, metal volume knob, turns smooth as silk. I mean, this thing definitely feels like it's in a different price bracket than the 3 on the left. Okay, so I hope that gives you some idea of where these guys stand. Similar features here between the M1 and the N3. Different sound though, fuller, more intimate, warm reference, warm neutral, and a little, the sound stage gets blown out a bit more, but otherwise same basic features. Between these two, this is still that, warm neutral, warm reference. This guy is definitely more on the reference analytical side, but seen improvements. And very simple user interface on this, more rudimentary, very fast startup time compared to these two over here. And then you have the Big Daddy, the i5, Android DAP, touchscreen, very different experience with the i5 versus the other 3. So I'm going to stop now, and then after I come back, I will flip on the N3, and I will walk you through the user interface feature that Alex, aka Twister6, just tipped people off about because it's pretty cool. And yeah, I'll be back in a sec. Alright, I am back with just the N3. I'm going to turn it on. Here we go. Alright. We'll go through boot up. And I have a, gosh, I forget, it's either a 128 gig card or a 200 gig card that is almost completely full in this DAP right now. And it has a lot of songs on it, mostly FLAC. There are some MP3 and AAC, and I'm not much of a high-res guy. Most of them are Redbook FLAC. There are some high-res files on there, like this guy is a high-res file. this newest remaster of Rush's Moving Pictures album. So let's see what is new about this latest firmware update. So we have, I think I walked everybody through the firmware on this guy before, so you can use the capacitive buttons, or you have to use the capacitive buttons here to move through the different categories. You got music category. I've got to say, I think this is a hideous screen, and I hope Cayin fixes it to be more in alignment with the feeling, or to be more in alignment with what the rest of the theme looks like. This just does not look like the rest of the theme. So what Alex was talking about is if you go in here, let's say we want to browse by artist, and I've got a lot of artists, so one thing you can do is you can go back through lists, which is nice, right? I mean, that's cool. So you can go down through lists, you can go back, you can hold down, and it will scroll through them. But what Alex discovered is that if you hit the list button here, then it will pop up an alphabet, and you can just go zooming through the alphabet, and that also goes backwards all the way back. So you can just skip forward like, oh yeah, I want to go to T, bam, and now I can scroll down from T, and I want to listen to Beastie Boys, and bam, I'm listening to Beastie Boys, right? So easy peasy, makes scanning through the collection of music on your really big cards easy. I tend, honestly, in the past, I've tended not to use that tag-based browsing. I always tend to go through the folder browsing. So I have my cards arranged, A through C, D through F, G through J, etc. And then inside those, if I go down to Animal Collective, then I have them organized by the year of release and the album name. And that way, when I am browsing my music, I'm always browsing in order of the oldest or their first music to their more recent music, which makes sense to me. That's the way I like to browse for the music. I'm an album guy anyway. I'm not, sometimes I don't even scan these cards into the database because I'm not shuffling. I don't care about browsing by genre or anything. So for me, it's not a big deal. I just want to get in, find the album I'm looking for, and move on with my life. So when you are in one of these menus, if you want to, you can back out singly like this, right? You click on them to move in. And if you really want to get out fast, you just hold down on the return button and you get straight out. Okay, and now playing. Everybody knows that. Music settings. Okay, I've gone through this before, I think, but this just has basic music settings. And again, you can go back or forward. You can hold down and it goes through quickly. I don't think anything has changed radically in there. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's look. I don't think there's been any radical changes in there. One thing that I didn't mention before is that with this guy, the Shanling M1, the Cayin N3 as well, they do gapless just with AAC, MP3, FLAC, ALAC, WAVE, with those files without a Q file. The Aune M1s, you have to do a Q file, so it really is one big file with a Q sheet, and the Q sheet tells the Aune M1s where to go in the file when you hit the fast forward or rewind button to get to the next track. I mean, it's an air quote track, right? Because it's actually one big file. So I forget. I don't think there's anything really that changed in there. People can comment if I missed something. Bluetooth. I don't think there's anything new in Bluetooth. System settings. They added in themes, which is, if you want a different theme, you can get a different theme. So now they've got the theme A, which is the original theme, right, with the piano and black. And then there is a theme B, which is this kind of orange theme here. And what is it? Looks like the neck of a violin or a cello or something there. And then they have, let's see if the theme C, I think theme C, yeah, that's what I like. It. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe a guitar. I think that might be a guitar there. I'm not sure. I like the curvature. It looks a little more abstract and less recognizable. So I've gone with theme C. So I think I've shown you about everything that has changed the last firmware update. We've got themes now. I showed you the little browsing trick that Alex taught us all, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure if it works in everything, like in songs, yep, works in songs, probably works in albums and genres, all that stuff. That is really nice. Kudos to Cayin for putting that in there, because that could actually make me use tag-based browsing for once in my life. Otherwise, I probably never would have used it. I still don't know if I'd go in there, because I think this is so unattractive. I'm not sure why they have, when they have that, none of the rest of the interface looks like that. You go in here and it looks normal. I really wish that they just made this music category a list so you could scroll through instead of this weird cover flow kind of thing. It looks so, I don't know, with the drop shadows and everything. I'm not into this. I think this is really strange and jarring. Maybe I'll PM Andy, or sorry, I'm like going off on it, but I really don't like that. Anyway, cool stuff. I'm really liking this DAP. And again, if I were listening to one of these 4 DAPs I showed on a consistent basis, it used to be the M1, and then the i5 updated, its sound got better. The N3 updated, its sound got better. The M1s updated, its sound got better, and it stopped cutting off my drum hit that begins, my beloved Tom Sawyer by Rush. And no, the M1s has fixed that. I mean, the M1s is really good. It's the only one here that it isn't that warm type sound. It's the only one that's a little bit more analytical or reference style. So I've really been enjoying that, especially with really warm in-ear monitors. With the rest of these, you might want to use a more neutral in-ear monitor, and I think you'll benefit quite a bit more. With the M1 or the M1 here, with the Shanling M1, you might even want to use a brighter in-ear monitor just to overcome some of that really full low end and open up the soundstage a little bit. Anyway, I'm not even showing you guys those. I'm just handling them off to the side. I realize that. It's kind of a jerk move. So I'm going to end this, and it's a nice day here. I'm going to go out and hang out outside for a bit while the sun's out. Maybe do a little gardening or something. And it's Easter tomorrow, so happy Easter to you guys in the world who are into Easter. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully I'll come back sometime in the near future. I know I've just been listening to the Lime ears, the LE2, the LE3 with the switch, and the Ether with the switch. And I'll give you my thoughts on those. I think those are interesting. I also just got in the Rapsodio Galaxy V2, and I've been listening to that out of DAPs. And I also got in the Aune S6 desktop DAC amp, and it's a fully balanced DAC amp. And I'm maybe tonight, I'm not sure. I'm going to try to listen to the Rapsodio Galaxy V2 out of that, since they're a single dynamic. I think it might be fun to listen to them out of that S6 and see how well they scale with desktop equipment. I'll be back in the near future with my thoughts on some or all of that equipment. Until then, happy listening, guys. Bye-bye.